Hey guys, Tyler Jeffcoat, Return on Podcast. Thank you for joining today's episode. We have an incredible interview coming up here with Chad Rubin. You know Chad. He's one of the OG Amazon sellers. The literally 15-year journey as the CEO of Crucial Vacuum is still going today. You know him from being one of the co-founders of the Prosper Show. You know him from Skubana that he exited a few years ago. And now you know him from Profasee, which is a tool he has built to help use machine learning to improve the pricing strategy and therefore profitability of your catalog. I just found this discussion to be very refreshing. Chad's a really interesting guy. He's a smart guy. He's a guy that believes in getting better. And I think you'll learn a lot from his evolution from, hustler to business owner to exit to how do I become the CEO of myself? That's really where this conversation goes. I think you're going to enjoy it. Thanks for joining this episode. If you like this content, it would really help me if you would hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, follow our social channels, and then help people find our podcast by getting the word out. Thanks again for joining Return on Podcast with me, Tyler Jeffcoat. It's time to maximize profitability and cash flow. It's time to learn habits and hacks from the best e-com CEOs. It's time for Return on Podcast with me, Tyler Jefcoat. All right, guys. Today, I'm excited to bring my friend Chad Rubin onto the Return on Podcast show. Chad, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for asking. Excited to be here.
Likewise, man. It's a beautiful day. Like I can't remember. Are you in Florida now, Chad? Is that where you?
Yeah, I moved to Florida during the pandemic. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm in Georgia. So like in the state of Georgia, we have like 3 weeks a year that are kind of our Super Bowl. Like this is when you actually want to live here. Like the weather is not either 98 degrees or cold. And right now we're just in the beginning of it here for the spring. So it's a ton of fun here. Going to be flying over you to go to the beach next week. So I'm going to be honest with you. I'm experiencing some like work-itis here today because I'm going to be hitting the plane to go into the Caribbean here in a couple of days, and I'm pumped for it. But I'm excited to get to talk to you about your journey today, Chad, and kind of how your investor mindset has evolved over the last few years. I mean, I was talking to some friends about this the other day, Chad. You literally are very close to like an OG Amazon seller. Like, right? I mean, you started Crucial in 2009. Am I right about that?
Yeah, 2009. In fact, I started selling Amazon before, but private label started really early 2008, 2009. Yeah.
And then so give us the kind of quick arc of like, were you just born as an entrepreneur? Like how did this pivot into let's find ways to solve problems and make money as an entrepreneur? How did that happen for you?
Yeah. Well, I grew up penniless. My parents didn't go to college, and so I wanted to carve out a different path. I think that was really the big driver for me. So I was like, okay, like how do I make money in the world? Well, I'm going to go to college and get a degree. My degree was finance because that was like really where my parents were weak at in their life. And so I think that was really a big driving factor for me. So it was like the PhD, right? Poor, hungry, and driven. And graduated school, went out to Wall Street. I started covering stocks. I was covering Amazon as a stock. So I was giving insights and advice to hedge funds and institutional investors to buy, sell, or hold various stocks, specifically Amazon. And Amazon launched this marketplace, and it was amazing, and it was new, and it was exciting. My parents owned a vacuum store, and then I paired the two things together, right? I was like, hey, you guys sell vacuums and parts. Let's get you on Amazon. And they were like, well, we're a book. Isn't Amazon like selling books? Like, is that really what Amazon's for? And I was like, no, they just launched this marketplace. Let's do it. That's how I met James Thompson, who became my account manager, who then we all co-founded the Prosper Show together from that experience, from him managing my account at Amazon. So kind of funny how the world works.
It is funny. I was actually just talking to James like 2 weeks ago and kind of getting a update on his life, and it's so fast. Thank you for sharing that because it is really interesting. The kind of old school, James used to call and beg people, would you please sell on Amazon? We need you. And obviously how the culture and the vibe and the fees and the relationship with Amazon as kind of the frenemy has evolved over the last 15 years has been pretty robust. And
Yeah,
so
so
then you went
I was going to say, like, fast forward, I think like I just harnessed that well.
yeah.
I sort of had this like rear view mirror of my mom going to the grocery store and trying to swipe a credit card and trying 15, 20 different credit cards till one worked. And so I think that harnessing that energy drove me forward into, okay, how do I build something for myself where I don't have to worry about that? I don't have to have those problems in the Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Makes sense. And so Crucial, I think, became Scubana and has since evolved beyond that. So now was the Scubana experiment, which by the way ended up being a thriving business that you exited, but like, was that your first kind of SaaS product?
Yes. So Scubana was the first ad. So I've used my e-commerce business as a dog fooding product to come up with these ideas. So the e-commerce business, we sell on Amazon. It's actually still around today. We make vacuum filters, coffee filters, replacement parts for the home. Sell them. Now we're moving much more towards Amazon. Funny is as everyone's trying to figure out how do they migrate off Amazon, we're doubling down. But yeah, so we started with that, and then Prosper showed there was no community for Amazon sellers. How do we build one? There was no software to help you manage orders and inventory. If you weren't an FBA and you're printing your own shipping labels or connecting to a 3PL, how do you make it all work? So I use that as the birthplace of these ideas to scratch my own itch. And then, of course, that's how I led to Profasee, which I'm sure we'll talk about later on. But yeah, so I think that's been the transition.
Love it. Yeah, it's really interesting. So just to circle back to the comment you made a minute ago, this idea that there does seem to be, I mean, listen, Chad, the aggregator like culture kind of burned the industry a little bit because it did create this kind of insane incentive to have like 3 ASINs on one marketplace with one supplier. And if you could get your EBITDA up high enough, you could get a 6x multiple or whatever and exit. And I do think that there's some like regression towards, oh, let's build a more like stable, meaningful business. And yet I actually hear a lot of wisdom in what you say there about, well, hold on, the kind of current is going this direction. We're doubling down on Amazon. Can you speak a little bit more to that? Like, what does that mean in your mind to kind of double down on Amazon?
I feel just, you look at historic patterns. So right now there's been these fee increases, right? So the take rate of Amazon is getting larger. Historically, it's constantly increased over time. And so I'm like talking to these other OG sellers who I really respect, and they're like, well, I'm going to just take my business and I'm going to go to Temu. And I'm like, in my head, I'm thinking to myself, like, first of all, Amazon doesn't care about the seller, right? Amazon cares about the customer. There's always going to be a seller that will replace you and who is willing to take less margin. So that's one. Two is you look at Jet.com, you look at Wish, you look at these other marketplaces who have pretty much burned and failed. They don't have the competitive advantage. They're all missing something. And I think that goes back to what Amazon does have, and they do really well, is they have an ecosystem and they have infrastructure. And they're responsible for both discovery, acquisition, and conversion with shipping right to your door. So for me, I'm just always thinking to myself, I'm asking the question of like, why? Like, why are sellers moving? What's in it for them to be saying that they're going to move? Is it just to stir the pot? Is it what everyone else wants to hear? And just look at the world in a different way. And I think that's that idea we were talking about, like riches and the niches before we joined the call. I think that's so true. Like, even despite challenges in the economy and a depression, you can still find ways to make money.
Yeah, makes total. Well, and so like maybe let's pivot into a little tactical here for a minute. So I'm assuming, having been selling on Amazon since before 2009, you've seen some significant shifts in the way profitability works for Amazon sellers and brand builders that are using Amazon as a platform. I mean, speak a little bit of that. Speak about how even Crucial has had to evolve throughout the years to kind of stay relevant as the marketplace has evolved. And then we can talk about Profasee a little bit.
Yeah. So Crucial, by the way, we were very early, and our margins when we first started on Amazon are very different than today.
Right.
We were making SaaS gross profit margins 80% when we first started. And I capitalized on this gold rush, so to speak. And then, of course, courses came along and people infiltrated, and then there's no competitive mode in my space, and that's really what erodes margin. So first of all, I've also personally I kind of always thought that there was always going to be someone on my tail catching up to my business because there was no competitive mode. So I never really saw Crucial as being like the place that I should be spending most of my time, right? Like I value time deeply, and I think time is the most important asset that we have on this planet. And so, where can I spend time that's going to maximize my outcome for my family, right, and create blessings and generational wealth? And I didn't believe that Amazon was it. I thought Amazon was a good ideation place to start. I made a lot of money on Amazon, but I just felt that there was more in me and more potential that could be activated. So that's really where I started exploring software, and we got into software in 2014, 2015, and started building. We sold in 2021. So while building a software company, I'm really, one of my big challenges is like, how do I manage multiple businesses at the same time? And that business actually started to erode, and you can actually see it as Cubana is scaling. You can actually see my e-commerce business starting to tear. Now, part of that is macro pressures. Part of it is China. Part of it is like I was pretty out there on the circuit, sharing openly all the things I was doing when like big hacks were available, when the marketplace wasn't that mature. And so we definitely got our butt handed to us. And so now, when we first started, let's just say we were 50% on Amazon, 50% on Magento or other channels. And now we're 90%. And actually, I'm going 100% all in on Amazon, and because that's where I'm seeing is the most bang for my buck. Mm-hmm. So the business has changed quite a bit.
Yeah, but that's such a good, you make a couple of good points there. One is that the market, even within the Amazon universe, every individual market is going to mature at different, right? So the fact that you could have SaaS-like margins in this particular category, like you and I don't have to be great at economics to know that isn't going to last forever. And so I don't think it's an unacceptable story at all to be like, we really rode this wave well, and we're able to build solutions that helped our internal team, and then we were able to pivot to kind of focusing on those solutions. And then because there must have been, Chad, several crossroads moments for you, I'm assuming between 2014 and maybe 2020 or so, where you had to decide, okay, the opportunity in this particular kind of spare parts, filters kind of universe is waning because the competitive advantage is hard to maintain. Is my best bang for my buck, the best return on my invested energy, to invent a new vertical and try to build something new within the Amazon universe, or to kind of leverage what I'm learning to help other sellers and build the software? And it's kind of an awesome story, man. I'm grateful that you guys were able to ride it through to what you're doing now. Honestly, it's kind of cool.
But it also is crazy that that e-commerce business is still around today, right? And still cash flowing, still making it work. So I just wanted to prioritize my time in a different way.
Yeah, that makes sense. And for any of us who have like seen our cost of capital for owning inventory over the last 3 years triple, like we were like, yeah, we get it, Chad. Like, listen, man, let's build some software, dude, because owning inventory, at scale is really difficult. I also love. I was talking to a really profitable seller before we jumped on this call, Chad, and what was interesting for me is it was another really very well-run 7-figure brand, mostly Amazon. In fact, so much mostly Amazon that it's like, 95% Amazon, and then there's 1%, 1%, 1%, 1% in these other random channels. And
Okay.
I could see for that gentleman it being very much wisdom to be like, listen, man, you're kind of playing at being a multi-channel seller at this point, but why don't you go ahead and just go all in with Amazon, because you can streamline your ops. And that was the comment I made to him, is like, what is the return on your energy in these other channels? And I'm assuming that's kind of one of the reasons you guys have decided to go, let's zip it up and go all in with Amazon, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And by the way, as other sellers are saying we can't make as much money, they're not leveraging they're not, like, for me, I think the next competitive wave on Amazon is the rise of the algorithmic brand. So using algorithms, the same way like trading on Wall Street in the 90s and the early 2000s came about with bots, trying to really arbitrage the price to value discrepancy that exists on that marketplace. The same thing is happening on Amazon. So I think you just have to get smarter as a seller. So essentially, it comes down to algorithms. And so while these fees are changing, and the fees, by the way, suck. Like, I'm not trying to say that they're good.
Right.
You just need to sell smarter despite fees increasing. And so that means doubling down on self-evolving learning machines like algorithms that are built to work more efficiently. They make bad decisions, but they learn from those decisions faster than a human can. They do it more accurately, and that really means more money and a competitive advantage. And I think that's like the next wave of what we're going to see on Amazon, and that's really where I'm doubling down on my energy. Not trying to tear down Amazon or go to Temu or Shein, but how do I gobble up what's happening on Amazon, just sell smarter and help other sellers sell smarter too.
Makes total sense. There's yeah, gosh, it's such a Amazon is in my opinion is increasingly not a game of like superior intelligence. It's not like whoever had the highest SAT score wins. It's actually whoever has the best ability to pay attention to all the details. And so this is what, again, why we're seeing, and this is why I'm excited to talk to you about Profasee a little bit here, is when you see tools that give you that unfair, like it's almost a seismic leap in your ability to pay attention to multiple elements. Because guess what, guys, the best way to pay attention to 100 or 1,000 ASINs is to not pay attention to them. Is to actually have a machine doing it for you. So tell us about the Profasee journey and what the problem set is that you guys are really solving for scaling sellers.
By the way, I just want to say on the SAT thing, like, good thing we're not judging me by SAT scores, because I would not be in the position I'm in right now if that was the case.
Okay, I probably wouldn't be either. Yeah, amen.
So Profasee, same thing. After I sold Stubana, which was a life-changing outcome for me and my family, I worked at the company that bought us, but also was thinking to myself, like, okay, where am I stubbing my toe? Like, where are we having challenges? I started helping out my e-commerce business after I resigned from the company that acquired us. And I was like, okay, let's revamp PPC. Let's revamp our listings. Let's do everything that everyone's telling us to do. And we did all those things. And yet I still wasn't seeing the outcome that I anticipated. So as I'm staring at the palm trees here in Florida, I came across this idea. I was like, okay, like, well, we have 500 private label SKUs. Why do we never change price? And is it because we're fearful of price changes? Is it that at scale we can change the prices? Is it like how do we come up with those prices that we set to begin with? What do? We copy our competition, who copied other competitors, and those competitors likely went broke. And so it's like, no wonder why all these Amazon brands are going broke, because they're just copying what other people are doing and think that's the way they should be doing it and pricing their product. So I started playing with pricing based on objective, and then found that this is a massive lever that nobody is pulling, and it could be done at significant scale using AI. So kind of like Uber surge pricing, we do that, but for Amazon private label brands only. So we don't compete for the buy box. There's tons of other repricing softwares out in the market that do that. We only work and live and die by the search engine ranking page on Amazon. So the first page of Amazon for whatever keyword you're searching for, let's just say garlic press, right? You might see a garlic press for $8, for $14, for $23, for $49. And we dynamically are changing pricing to maximize the objective, whether it's profit without hurting your rank, or whether it's BSR or revenue or units.
Really, really, really interesting. So that actually makes so much sense to me. I remember you and I connected a few months ago, and my instinct was to go, oh, it's a reseller repricing tool. And you were like, no, it's not that. And this is so much more intelligent for brands, because you're right. Like I was actually talking to a seller in my mastermind a couple of weeks ago, and she just like, I would say her hesitancy to raise her price was rooted more for her, maybe even in like confidence or like self-esteem. Like she's like, people won't pay more than that. Like, that's got to be the top price. And we increased the price by like 20%, and her sales did not go down at all. And I think the power of a tool like Profasee is the ability, I'm assuming, to kind of just run hundreds of baby tests, right? Like you can actually use not an instinct or a fear factor or a happy factor. You can just use data, right, to decide what the right bets to place are. Am I saying that correctly? Is that basically what it does?
Yeah. So it's really A/B testing at scale. So there's a few interesting things, right? Number one is most sellers never change price. So if you went on Instagram or Facebook and you never liked something, you never comment on something, you never watch a video, the algorithm won't know what to serve you to hit your dopamine, so you death scroll and you continuously death scroll. Like they want your behavior is spend as much time on the platform as possible. The same thing for Amazon prices. If no one changes price, there's nothing for the model to chew on. So what we do is in the first 30 days, we do something called hyper learning. So within a specific range, -5 to +5%, we're changing pricing to see how Amazon.com reacts, to see how your customers react, and to see how your competition reacts. So like most people make price changes and they don't even actually consider what happens to competitors and how they react to those price changes. All of those signals now are getting fed and informing our model, and we enrich that data. And then we go into the optimization phase to make you a whole lot more money. And we're seeing a 10 to 15% lift in profit for the brands that are using us, for the private label brands that are using us. But yeah, it's all data driven. Every single decision is all driven based on deep data that's been digested, and we're dynamically doing it for you.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So beautiful. So I'm assuming, I don't want to assume here, but the kind of seller that's going to get maximum value out of a tool like Profasee, like actually maybe I'll ask the question this way: who's listening to this show right now? What are they feeling? What are they going through? What does their business look like where they 100% need to go check out Profasee and do the little calculator and see if it makes sense to buy the software?
So one is we have a calculator on our site. So you can go to the site, and then I think there's like resources, and then there's a profit calculator there of what you would see based on the amount of ASINs and the amount of revenue that you'd be doing. So, I mean, where Profasee works is like, hey, if you're just guessing on your price and you're just copying competitors, if you haven't changed price in a long time, or you never change price, we believe that pricing is something that you're linking it directly to the customer's behavior. So based on demand, impressions, sessions, conversion rate, all of those things are coming into the model just to help elevate the amount of money that we're making you. And since nobody is doing it, that means the opportunity is even larger. Most people are, it's kind of like a sleight of hand, right? When you see a magician, they want you to focus here, right? And that's on PPC, let's just say. Because what does PPC do? PPC enriches Amazon.com, gives them more revenue, and it enriches the agencies and the softwares that are all part of the Amazon flywheel of their partner network to just get people to spend more money on Amazon. Those incentives aren't aligned. So the goal is to get you to look here versus here.
Beautiful. I love it. I love it. Well, guys, I am going to make sure that we always do this, Chad, but in our show notes and the YouTube and on the podcast as well, we'll make sure there's a link to Profasee so that they can take a look at that calculator. I actually did pull up the calculator and ran it for a couple of the brands that I'm helping to manage as the CFO. And it's compelling. I mean, I think if you're doing, $20K a month in revenue like that, you may be too small unless your margins are really, really bad. But I think if you're an average private label brand, I would say even doing more than $500,000 a year in revenue, that there feels to me like there's tremendous ROI at taking a close look at Profasee. So it's pretty cool, dude. Thank you for sharing it with us here, man. It's pretty neat. Okay, so final question. Gosh, where do I want to go with this? I've got two questions here. Actually, let me ask you, this is like, I want to ask you kind of a culture question, and then I want to ask you a habit hack question to kind of close our show here. So I was reading one of your, you and I both geek out over masterminds. We both believe that, your network is your net worth, and the ability to develop transformational relationships matters a lot. On one of your websites that I was reading, you made the comment that, experiences should be transformative and not transactional. Like, would you just give us a little bit of like how that's played out in your life and what that really means to you?
Yeah. Well, after I sold Stubana, I did a lot of personal development. I think there was a lot of just like debt that accrued of spending a whole lot of time on a business, giving to customers and giving to employees and giving to investors, and not deploying and harvesting enough resources to my heart. So I was like, okay, after the sale, April 2021, I have an infinite budget to become the CEO of myself. And that means to hire coaches and surround myself by people who can I can leave this period better than how I began the period. And it'll be an amazing ROI. One of those, I've had a lot of great experiences, but like one of the takeaways of hiring 10 different coaches at that time frame was discovering, first of all, my own core values, but on top of that, like my mission in life.
Mm.
So what I was like thinking about, what are the things that really light me up? And one of those things is I love learning, and I love activating potential, right? Like gathering with other people and connecting, and not keeping it shallow, right? Which I think is like more transactional. It's like, tit for tat, or hey, here's an affiliate link, or here's my Calendly link. Just hop on a call and schedule a call with me. And then it's like the incentives aren't aligned. And so a couple of things. I found my mission, which was to elevate the human condition through holy moment experiences. I bought a boat. I named it Elevate.
Love it.
My son's Hebrew name is Ram, which in Hebrew can be translated to like noble or elevated. And that concept just sticks with me, right? And I just love being around people that help me become a better version of myself. Really, that's it. And because time is too short to spend time with going out, drinking, and like you end the night and you wake up the next day or you're not fulfilled in a specific way. I can keep going on and on the topic, but I just love being around people who help me become a better version of myself, the fullest version of myself. And I feel nourished after that conversation or that get together or that dinner.
Makes complete sense. And I just want to, just as a, you and I are kind of friends at a distance. We see each other maybe once a year, probably even less than that. But I just observe in you, Chad. The first time I met you was in 2018. And the only reason I know that is that I had just sold the last company, and you happened to be at the first Prosper show I ever went to, like 2 months later in the beginning of 2018. And my observation of you is that you're a different dude, man. You're a different guy than you were 6 years ago. And it's exciting to see. And I think this is something people should take note of, that as we experience levels of success, maybe you feel like your business is elevating. I think we are to our own peril if we don't slow down and make sure we're elevating the way we live our lives, and making sure that our values are aligned with our energies and our efforts. So way to go, man. It's pretty cool. I guess final question.
The last thing on that is going to like double click, which is, I think like building Skubana, which was like my, like, let's just say magnum opus in my career.
Mm-hmm.
The mindset was different because I had so much friends and family invested in that business. Mm-hmm. The stakes were super high, and I had a really hard time being present with the people that I would be around in the ecosystem, or to go deeper into relationships, because there was like so much on the line. Yeah. I had this like scarcity mindset. I was always on edge of losing it because there were so many whiffio moments, were after it's over moments that happened during running that business, and I hurt people unintentionally, and so many things happened during that time frame. So I'm trying to build back better and build a business differently than when I'm trying to lead with more of an abundance mindset.
It's beautiful. I love it. I love it. I love it, man. Okay. So last question I want to ask you here is there a practice, a routine, a habit, a hack for your life, Chad, that's just given you an outrageous ROI that you would recommend that we check out?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things. I think like there's good investments. Are you asking for like product specific things, or?
Really, let me just to frame it. I think I've heard everything from journaling, yoga, exercise to EOS, ideal team player, PPC strategy. So I don't know that I have no guardrails here, man. Like, what in your quest to, honestly, you're so in the middle of this right now, because in your quest to become a better version of yourself, kind of stealing from James Clear here in Atomic Habits, like, what do you think those small incremental things that you do regularly are that unlock a ton of value for you in your life personally?
Okay. I live and die by my schedule. So if it's not on the schedule, it's not there. So whether it's working out, family time, chill time, float tank time in the deprivation tank, those are all things that are on the calendar. I think that's a great, and so like I'm trying to really not make trade-offs with my family. I have a son who's 4.5, and I want to make sure that I am properly being part of his upbringing and being there for him. And that's something I didn't have when I was growing up. So I want to obviously change the generational wounds that exist. So I think that's good. I guess from a product perspective, like I'm wearing an Apple Watch right now, and I take most of my calls walking. If it doesn't require me to be in front of a computer, I'm going to be outside walking, taking those calls. And I think getting steps in, getting vitamin D is really important to health. I think this is going to be a little bit, you probably have never gotten this one before, but other products like investing in good sneakers, a good mattress, and investing in Japanese bidets across your home is probably some of the largest ROI activities that you can have.
You're correct in that the Japanese bidet is a new one, but hey, it's going on my list. I'm going to check it out. Thank you, man.
Yeah. So I think it's like we used to have a customer at Skubana named Tushy, and they just kind of like opened my eyes up to just not only like the cleanliness factor, there's like the environment factor. I mean, there's a whole lot of reasons why, but it's just the more civilized way.
Bro, the name's not Tushy. Tell me the name's not Tushy.
The name is Tushy. Yeah.
Oh, not the customer themselves, but the brand.
The brand, yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm like, man, if this guy's name is Tushy, that's gonna be fantastic. Yeah. That's where I learned about it. Got it, dude. Well, I love it, dude. Love it. Chad, this has been great, man. Thank you for joining Return on Podcast. Again, I'm gonna make sure that people have access to your website and your links, and grateful for your insights. Yeah, man. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, please. And if anybody's interested in learning more, they can follow. I put a lot of interesting thoughts out into the interwebs on LinkedIn and on Twitter. So feel free to follow along, and happy to support any way I can.
Love it. And guys, for any of you who have made it, 30 some odd minutes into this interview with Chad, we just want to say thanks. But it's your time, like Chad said, is the most valuable asset you have. And the fact that you would invest some portion of it with us is a gift. And so we hope you grab some nuggets, something that'll make your life better. Until we see you next week here at Return on Podcast, we hope you kill it. Take care.